được đưa ra với mục tiêu thực hiện chiến dịch gây áp lực tối đa nhằm buộc Tehran phải thay đổi chính sách. Tuy nhiên, nó cũng tạo ra những thách thức không nhỏ cho các nỗ lực duy trì hòa bình tại Trung Đông. Trong bài diễn văn, nhà lãnh đạo Iran đã trình bày một cái nhìn đa chiều về tình hình an ninh khu vực. Ông kêu gọi các cường quốc thế giới, đặc biệt là Hoa Kỳ, cần có cái nhìn khách quan hơn về vai trò của Iran trong việc duy trì trật tự. Tổng thống Pezeshkian cho rằng các lệnh trừng phạt kinh tế không chỉ gây khó khăn cho đời sống của người dân Iran mà còn làm suy yếu khả năng hợp tác quốc tế trong các vấn đề an ninh chung. Ông bày tỏ hy vọng rằng các nhà lãnh đạo tại Washington sẽ xem xét lại các chính sách hiện tại để mở đường cho một giải pháp ngoại giao bền vững, giúp ổn định thị trường năng lượng và giảm bớt các xung đột tiềm tàng. Đề cập đến tình hình tại Trung Đông, Tổng thống Iran không quên nhắc đến những biến động phức tạp đang diễn ra tại Dải Gaza và Lebanon. Ông bày tỏ sự quan ngại sâu sắc về sự leo thang bạo lực và kêu gọi cộng đồng quốc tế cùng chung tay tìm kiếm một lệnh ngừng bắn toàn diện. Dù đưa ra những lời chỉ trích đối với một số hành động quân sự trong khu vực, ông Pezeshkian vẫn giữ một thái độ chừng mực khi khẳng định Iran không muốn chứng kiến một cuộc chiến tranh diện rộng. Ông cho rằng đối thoại là con đường duy nhất để bảo vệ mạng sống của hàng nghìn dân thường và đảm bảo quyền lợi cho các bên liên quan. Một điểm đáng chú ý trong bối cảnh an ninh hiện nay là sự hiện diện của các lực lượng quân sự quốc tế tại vùng vịnh. Các đơn vị thuộc Thủy quân lục chiến Hoa Kỳ và các biên đội tàu săn bay vẫn đang duy trì hoạt động để bảo vệ tự do hàng hải và ngăn chặn các nguy cơ tấn công vào các tuyến vận tải dầu mỏ huyết mạch. Tổng thống Pezeshkian nhấn mạnh rằng an ninh của khu vực nên được đảm bảo bởi chính các quốc gia trong khu vực thông qua một cơ chế hợp tác chung thay vì phụ thuộc quá nhiều vào sự can thiệp quân sự từ bên ngoài. Ông khẳng định Iran sẵn sàng là một đối tác trách nhiệm trong việc xây dựng một cấu trúc an ninh khu vực mới, nơi mà sự tin tưởng lẫn nhau thay thế cho các hành động răn đe vũ lực. Về phía Hoa Kỳ, mặc dù chính quyền đương nhiên vẫn duy trì các lệnh trừng phạt như một công cụ gây ảnh hưởng, nhưng các quan chức ngoại giao tại Washington cũng đã nhiều lần bày tỏ là cánh cửa đàm phán vẫn chưa hoàn toàn khép lại. Việc ông Pezeshkian xuất hiện tại Liên Hợp Quốc với một phong thái điềm tĩnh và thông điệp hòa giải được xem là một tín hiệu tích cực, giúp các nhà quan sát hy vọng vào một sự chuyển biến trong tương lai. Tuy nhiên, giới phân tích cũng chỉ ra rằng để đi đến một thỏa thuận thực chất, cả hai phía cần phải vượt qua rất nhiều rào cản về chính trị nội bộ cũng như những nghi kỵ đã tích tụ qua nhiều thập kỷ. Bên cạnh các vấn đề chính trị, bài phát biểu còn nhấn mạnh đến khát vọng phát triển kinh tế của thế hệ trẻ Iran. Ông Pezeshkian cho rằng việc dỡ bỏ lệnh vận mấm sẽ cho phép Iran đóng góp nhiều hơn vào nền kinh tế quốc tế thông qua nguồn tài nguyên thiên nhiên phong phú và đội ngũ nhân lực chất lượng cao. Ông khẳng định Iran không muốn cô lập mà muốn trở thành một phần không thể tách rời của cộng đồng quốc tế. Nhà lãnh đạo này kêu gọi các doanh nghiệp nước ngoài hãy nhìn nhận Iran như một thị trường tiềm năng đầy hứa hẹn thay vì một khu vực rủi ro. Kết thúc bài phát biểu, Tổng thống Masoud Pezeshkian đã gửi đi một thông điệp mạnh mẽ về sự tôn trọng chủ quyền và bình đẳng giữa các quốc gia. Ông nhấn mạnh rằng thế giới của năm 2024 cần những nhà lãnh đạo có tầm nhìn xa, dám bước qua những định kiến cũ để xây dựng một tương lai chung tốt đẹp hơn. Dù chặng đường phía trước còn nhiều khó khăn, nhưng lời kêu gọi chấm dứt phong tỏa và thiết lập đối thoại của Iran tại Diễn đàn Liên Hợp Quốc lần này chắc chắn sẽ là một dấu mốc quan trọng trong nỗ lực tìm kiếm hòa bình cho khu vực Trung Đông và thế giới. Sự kiện này cũng nhắc nhở cộng đồng quốc tế rằng trong một thế giới ngày càng kết nối sâu sắc hơn, sự thấu hiểu và nhượng bộ luôn có giá trị hơn là các biện pháp trừng phạt hay đối đầu quân sự đơn phương. Đối thoại Iran-Pakistan đầy trở ngại và quan niệm chiến lược từ cựu Tổng thống Donald Trump. Trong bối cảnh tình hình địa chính trị tại khu vực Nam Á và Trung Đông đang có những diễn biến hết sức phức tạp, chuyến thăm của người đứng đầu ngành ngoại giao Iran tới Pakistan đã thu hút sự chú ý đặc biệt của dư luận quốc tế. Cuộc gặp gỡ này diễn ra sau một giai đoạn căng thẳng cấp độ khi hai quốc gia láng giềng lần đầu tiên trong nhiều thập kỷ đã thực hiện các cuộc tấn công tên lửa đáp trả lẫn nhau qua biên giới. Tuy nhiên, những nỗ lực hàn gắn vết thương ngoại giao này dường như đang vấp phải nhiều rào cản lớn, trong khi tại Hoa Kỳ, cựu Tổng thống Donald Trump cũng đã đưa ra những tuyên bố đáng chú ý về cách tiếp cận đối với các vấn đề quốc tế này. Chuyến thăm của Ngoại trưởng Iran, ông Hossein Amirabdollahian tới
We hear daily from so many. For example, as the First Lady of the United States pointed out this morning, just 2 days prior to the shooting, ABC's late night host Jimmy Kimmel disgustingly called First Lady Melania Trump an expectant widow. Who in their right minds says a wife would be glowing over the potential murder of her beloved husband? And having experienced what I did with the First Lady on Saturday night, I can tell you that she was anything but that. This kind of rhetoric about the president, the first lady, and his supporters is completely deranged, and it's unbelievable that the American people are consuming it night after night after night. As President Trump said on Saturday night at this podium, we as Americans must recommit ourselves to resolving our differences peacefully and uniting around the shared values that make our country great. The deranged lies and smears against the president, his family, his supporters have led crazy people to believe crazy things, and they are inspired to commit violence because of those words. It has to stop. And one more point. Saturday night served as yet another reminder of how important it is to fund the Department of Homeland Security. It is shameful that the United States Congress has kept this vital agency defunded for 73 days, the longest shutdown of a federal agency in U.S. history. The Secret Service is a vital component of DHS. It has been directly impacted by this reckless political gamesmanship. Everyone in this room who was there on Saturday night witnessed the heroes of Secret Service and federal law enforcement jump into action in the face of grave danger and uncertainty. Agents put their own lives in harm's way to protect the president, the First Lady, the Vice President, and members of the cabinet. One agent can be seen in video footage literally jumping onto the stage, not knowing where the attacker was or where the bullets were coming from at that point, to place his body in front of the President of the United States. These men and women are heroes. They perform their duties daily, and they have children and families too. And they do it despite the political turmoil surrounding their agency. Make no mistake, this defunding of DHS should be a national scandal. If Republicans defunded DHS and we saw another attempted assassination on a Democrat president, I would hope that the media coverage would be relentless and unforgiving, and I hope that it continues to be now. With the World Cup, America 250, the 2028 Olympics, and a presidential election all ahead, the Democrats' obstruction is placing an enormous and totally pointless burden on the Secret Service that can get more people killed. Enough is enough. There should be no further debate about this. Democrats need to do what President Trump has been calling on them to do for 73 days in a row and fund the Department of Homeland Security, period. This is a national emergency, and every member of Congress needs to put their country over party and get the Department of Homeland Security funded. With that, I will take a few of your questions today. Daniel, thank you for being here. Why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Karoline. The president, Saturday after the assassination attempt, came here. He emphasized that law enforcement did their job, keeping everyone safe over dinner. House Speaker Mike Johnson came out and said he believes the president needs greater protection. What is the White House's message to the millions of Americans who wake up here today nervous, uneasy about the safety of the president at events like this and the safety of other cabinet members?
Well, we certainly understand their fears and their worries. As you heard from the president himself, he continues to have trust in the United States Secret Service. As I just said, these are great men and women who are doing their jobs and performing their duties honorably. As we all witnessed on Saturday evening, within minutes, the president, the first lady, the vice president, members of the president's cabinet were ushered out of the room. The perpetrator who sought to inflict massive harm, as we all now know with the release of the manifesto on administration officials and the president himself, was stopped at the security perimeter that was set up. He tried to charge through it, as you saw on video, and he was quickly neutralized by Secret Service, and thank God that he was. With that said, obviously the White House is always asking the tough questions and ensuring the safety of the president. I understand there will be a meeting early this week convened by the White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles with top DHS leadership, members of the United States Secret Service, and our own operations team here to ensure the safety and the security of the president, as we do have many of these major events moving forward. So we're always monitoring operations and procedures, always asking the tough questions to ensure the president is safe, and the American people should be assured there's no higher priority for the president and his staff than the president's safety.
Karoline, Friday you said that you thought that gaggle out of the sticks would be your last one for your baby. Back in 2024, when the president had the attempt on his life in Butler, you cut your maternity leave short back then. You're obviously back here today after Saturday. Can you just elaborate a little bit why you felt it was important to be here to bring to the media and talk to the American people from the stand?
Sure. It's sort of crazy timing when you put it that way for both children with 2 assassination attempts against the president. I'm honored to work in this job. I view this job as the president's spokesperson and the White House spokeswoman as public service. It's not just any job. I'm honored to do it, and I'm honored to work and speak on behalf of President Trump, who has faced unprecedented adversity and challenges, and I'm honored to work for him. And again, as I witnessed on Saturday night, just his dogged resolve and determination to get back onto the stage, and he was pushing Secret Service and law enforcement to allow him to address, and that really, I think, hopefully gives the country the type of strength that we need. And I certainly know, as his spokeswoman, and I can speak on behalf of all of the staff here at the White House, the president inspires all of us to just keep going and keep fighting every day.
Thanks, Karoline.
Thanks, Daniel, and congrats to you on your new baby. He's beautiful. Aisha.
Just on the rhetoric, you mentioned the First Lady and Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel's comments were, "Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow." And he said this days before the shooting, but there does seem to be a normalization of rhetoric about assassinating this particular president. How can this administration try to put an end to this?
Well, I think you heard it directly from the president on Saturday night, Aisha, that in his words, we need to recommit ourselves as a country to toning down the rhetoric and to unifying around what makes our country great. That's true of everyone who works in this White House, but as I said, it's also true of everyone who has a voice and a platform across this country, whether you're on television, a podcast host, people listen, and when you have mentally disturbed individuals across the country who are listening to this crazed rhetoric about the president day after day after day, it inspires them to do crazy things. And unfortunately, it's not just the media, it is the entire Democrat Party has made their pitch to voters across the country that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to democracy, that he is a fascist, and that they compare him to Hitler. I mean, these are despicable statements that the American people have been consuming for years. And so many mentally perturbed individuals are led to believe these words are truth and then are inspired to act on it. I have a whole host of examples that we can share with you after. It is pages and pages of major Democrat Party elected officials saying, such as Rep. Hakeem Jeffries just this month said, "We are in an era of maximum warfare everywhere all the time." Governor Josh Shapiro said heads need to roll within the administration. Senator Alex Padilla said people are, quote, dying because of fear and terror caused by the Trump administration. Senator Elizabeth Warren, President Trump is making the country look like a, quote, fascist state. Senator Adam Schiff saying President Trump using a dictator playbook. Senator Ed Markey calling President Trump a dictator, saying that this administration's actions are authoritarianism on steroids. Governor J.B. Pritzker, "Never before in my life have I called for mass protest disruptions. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace." You have Rep. Presley saying, "We'll see you in the streets." Rep. Monica McIver, a Democrat representative on Capitol Hill, "We will not take this shit from Donald Trump. He thinks he's a dictator. We are at war." These are Democrat elected officials calling for war against the President of the United States and his supporters. I could go on and on, but again, when you have people in positions of power that are saying things like this every single day for years, you are inspiring violence by people who are already mentally ill. And that's what we've seen against this president for far too long.
This is disinformation and misinformation online. There will be bite-sized clips that will go viral to the point where there are Americans in this country that believe that what happened Saturday night was staged. How does this White House tackle that with social media companies out there, whether it's X, Facebook, Instagram? How do they work with these companies to make sure that doesn't get out of control?
It's certainly a good question, Aisha. I don't have tangible answers for you on what we're doing with social media companies, if anything at all. What I will say is it's very important to us that we get the truth and the facts about this case and any case out there as quickly as possible to dispel some of that crazy nonsense that you do see running rampant online. And I think the Department of Justice and the FBI thus far have done a good job of disseminating the truth and the facts about this alleged attempted assassin, the perpetrator in this case, and I understand he'll be arraigned in court very soon. You will all see that, and the Department of Justice will be giving a briefing and an update later later today. So as far as we're concerned, just providing maximum transparency, and hopefully people will believe the truth rather than the lies and the conspiracies that so often do go crazy on social media.
Caroline.
Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Does the administration view this as a security failure, or did the protocols work as they were designed?
The president has said he believes that the protocols worked. Again, you had a perpetrator who tried to breach the security parameter that was set up by Secret Service, and he was running as fast as he could and was immediately neutralized moments later. And again, having been right up there on the stage with the president and the First Lady, I can tell you it was seconds before we were told to get down, and it was seconds before we found ourselves in the hold room backstage. It all happened literally within a matter of seconds. The president, the vice president, and the First Lady being pulled to safety. That is not done if there's a lapse. So Secret Service did their jobs well. They communicated with one another to remove the president and the vice president to safety as quickly as they could, and obviously to neutralize the shooter as well. And thank God they did, because if that man was allowed into that ballroom, it would have been a much different scene.
And just one more follow-up on just how the White House could be rethinking security protocols going forward. I mean, we all remember after the attempted assassination in Butler, there were indoor rallies that were held after that. Is that out of the question, changing any additional security protocols when it comes to how the president does these events that are outside of the White House?
I definitely wouldn't say changes are out of the question. I think, again, that it's up to the White House here, and we view it as a great responsibility to ensure the maximum safety of the president and the vice president and the entire cabinet. And so we're always looking for ways to improve security. I think if you just sit here and say everything is perfect all the time, that's not a good way to operate. And so the White House will continue to engage with DHS and with Secret Service to find ways to improve and strengthen security. But as far as Saturday night is concerned, the president was satisfied with the response, and he's very grateful to the men and women who provided the response for him and his wife and members of his team.
Caroline.
Deanne.
Thanks, Caroline. The president has talked about rescheduling the dinner within 30 days. Does he have a specific venue in mind, and would he consider hosting it at the White House?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have a room big enough here at the White House, which is another point to be made, and the president is absolutely right. It's why the White House Ballroom project is not just a fun project for President Trump, like you will read in the media. It is actually critical for our national security that a larger, secure building on this complex, which is the most secure complex in the world, is built to accommodate not only large amounts of guests, but also the president, the vice president, members of the cabinet. The line of succession in this country should be able to gather freely in safety without the fear of threats or political violence. And the White House Ballroom will provide that. And so it's critical that we get this project done as quickly as possible.
Iran as well.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Caroline. Two questions, if that's all right. First, on the security situation on Saturday, kind of a follow-up here. Previous administrations have sent both the president and the vice president to the dinner, but after the foiled attack on Saturday, if the dinner is rescheduled, would President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance both plan on attending? And is it wise to have both of them in the same spot, given the presidential line of succession that you mentioned a second ago?
It's definitely a good question, and I know that it's one that will be raised. I can assure you the president intends to attend the event, as he has told all of you publicly. I don't want to rule in or out the vice president's attendance, but certainly that's a conversation that will take place.
And Iran has proposed a mutual reopening of the Strait, leaving the nuclear discussion for later in the process. Given that the nuclear program has been a red line for this administration, would the president agree to that kind of phased negotiation?
Well, only because it's been reported. I will confirm the president has met with his national security team this morning. The meeting may be ongoing, maybe not. I don't want to speak affirmatively because I was prepping to come out here, but the proposal was being discussed. I don't want to get ahead of the president or his national security team. What I will reiterate is that the president's red lines with respect to Iran have been made very, very clear, not just to the American public, but also to them as well.
So they're considering that phased approach?
I wouldn't say they're considering it. I would just say that there was a discussion this morning that I don't want to get ahead of, and you'll hear directly from the president, I'm sure, on this topic very soon.
What's the president's
I'm going to ask you about the Fed chairman, but first, 3 assassination attempts in 3 years. Is this going to change the type of events that the president goes to?
Well, again, that's going to be part of the conversations moving forward. But as you heard from President Trump, he does not want these deranged lunatics and these grave acts of political violence to change our American way of life. And I think it's a very brave thing for him to say. It'd be very easy for him to just hunker down here at the White House where he knows he's safe, but the president wants to be out across the country. He wants to go across the country to meet with Americans. He wants to celebrate the 250th birthday of our nation's anniversary this summer. As you know, we're gearing up for a big UFC fight here on the South Lawn. So there's many exciting events I know the president wants to be part of and will be part of moving forward. He's undeterred in that way, and it's something that inspires all of us here to keep going.
Senator Tillis is now dropping his objection to allowing Kevin Warsh to be confirmed because the DOJ has closed their investigation. Is the president satisfied that an Inspector General report into the Federal Reserve is enough to look into these renovations?
The president understands that the Inspector General has greater tools at their disposal, perhaps even more powerful than a grand jury, to continue investigating the financial mismanagement of the Fed building, which is a priority for the president. Look, he's a builder himself. When he sees something has a lot of cost overruns, is taking too long, and in this case ripping off the American taxpayer, he wants to get to the bottom of it. I understand Senator Tillis put out a statement saying he'll support Kevin Warsh's confirmation. That has been our position all along from day one. He is more than qualified for the job, and we look forward to working with the Senate on his swift confirmation process. Megan.
As a follow-up on Warsh, will the president be satisfied once the Fed's Inspector General finishes that investigation, even if it finds no evidence of wrongdoing?
Well, that's a hypothetical question. I'll let the president speak on it when we see the results. It's obviously far too early to say.
And relatedly, as a follow-up, now that it looks like Warsh will be confirmed by the end of Jay Powell's term, is he still considering firing Jay Powell if he stays on as governor after that?
I haven't talked to him about it specifically, but I think the president will be satisfied once Kevin Warsh is confirmed as the Fed chair, which he should be. Karen.
On Iran, the president had said last week that the U.S. has started the process of clearing the Strait of Hormuz of mines. Do you have an update on how many have been removed and an estimate of how long that process could take?
I don't, but I would defer you to the Pentagon on that. We'll make sure they get you an answer, Karen.
It's an ongoing process, though. It's still actually happening right now.
Again, I would defer you to the Pentagon on anything with respect to clearing mines in the Strait of Hormuz.
I know that you said that the White House is reviewing the security protocols for things that could be done differently in the future. Have you identified anything so far that you would like to see done differently, or ask the Secret Service to make any changes in the security protocols for the president, particularly at these large events that are taking place off the White House campus?
Not yet, no, but as I said, there will be a meeting here at the White House in the earlier half of this week, so those conversations will take place.
And on the line of succession...
And I would also just add, you know, look, the Secret Service does not detail their procedures or operations to the public for obvious reasons, because you have crazy people who try to hijack them and get around them. So these conversations will take place in private, but if adjustments need to be made to protect the president, they will be made.
White House discussed doing like it does, for instance, with a joint address to Congress for these large events, and designating someone as the designated survivor for future large events that the cabinet attends.
Well, those conversations ahead of the Waka dinner did take place, but there were several members of the cabinet in the line of succession who did not attend for various personal reasons. So designating one survivor was not necessary, as we had several members who were not there already.
Caroline, all those people forced to dive under tables and fearing for their lives on Saturday night, including many of the people in this room, myself included. What is the president's message to those people who experienced that terrible trauma and maybe are still fearful today?
I think he would say, as he sort of did on Saturday night, coming in here in his tuxedo, you know, we can't allow these crazy people to let us be afraid. We have to keep moving forward, showing up, doing our job, celebrating our country, and doing what we know is right. But certainly we'd like to see the rhetoric against this president and his supporters toned down, because it is inspiring these crazy people across the country to target not just the president, but those who work for him and those who support him. And it must end.
Is he following the arraignment of the suspect today?
Yes, he is, and I know you all want to follow that too. It's happening in a few minutes, so I'll let you all go. The Department of Justice is also going to be speaking momentarily following the arraignment, and I pray that this is the last time I speak to you for some time until after my maternity leave. So thank you guys. See you soon. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
How are you? Good to see you. We have a packed house, and I have two very special guests with me today. I will start with some scheduling announcements. Tomorrow afternoon, President Trump will travel to Las Vegas, Nevada to hold a roundtable and deliver remarks on the working families tax cuts. On Friday, President Trump will travel to Phoenix, Arizona to deliver remarks at a Turning Point USA event at Dream City Church. And I'm really honored to be standing here today on Tax Day with two esteemed members of the President's cabinet and his excellent economic team, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler. As we have seen this tax season, President Trump's working families tax cuts have put a historic amount of money back into the pockets of the American people this year. On the campaign trail in 2024, President Trump looked voters in the eye and promised them he would sign the largest tax cuts in the history of our country. And on Independence Day last year, President Trump and congressional Republicans delivered, passing the largest tax cut in history for working and middle-class Americans.